now we're ready for the calyx and the leaves. Though the calyx might take up an entire video length in and of itself, even though it's a simple little structure, looking wise, making it. So this is the one that I actually finished before, before I know I had to redo one. So not the one we just did the last video. So it's a simple cone calyx that we have going on here. Fairly simple. But in fact probably takes a little bit more effort to make than, say, the ones that are the calyces that are made out of, say, double continuous loops or just continuous loops, because those are more ornamental. They look really pretty, and I've made a bunch of those, especially like on the bottom of poppies or things like that. But this is actually going to help us structurally. We need one that actually has some weight to it, some push to it, can push on there. So we're going to do a cone one, which looks simple and will help us hold these leaves together. Now, again, you can give it a try. They're relatively fast to make because there are only 6 rows on each side. However, if you try a few, and if you don't feel like you want to use it or it's not what you use, then again, nobody's going to flip your flower over and go, hey, where's the calyx? So, if you're not going to make a calyx, what I would do at this point, let's get back to our other guy, the one that we haven't finished, the one I really did make for you guys in the last video. I would probably, for me, take maybe a 30 or a strong 30 or 28 and wrap real tight up in here again. Just do a bunch of wraps. Just wrap it around. Hold it here again like we've been doing, and then, hold like the end of it, and then just wrap around and just give it a little more structural, and just wrap it so it's almost like smooth with itself. And then put another layer of the floral tape over it. And that'll give you some help with this too. So, and look at how sturdy it is already, just with the floral tape there. I mean, that's because it's wire. But you can see that the unit itself isn't wobbling around too much. So the calyx helps us, but it's not 100% necessary. Now, so you don't, again, try the calyx. If it's something that's bugging you too much, and it's a good thing to learn, so this is a practicing video. But again, if you want to get on with your day with these and get them in a vase or something, you really don't need to have one. And you can build that little kind of bulging calyx out of, say, a bunch of 28 or 30 wire wrapped really just right on top, like right next to each other, so there's no gaps between the turns, and just go down about 1/2 inch or so, and then, finish it off, and then go back in with the floral tape and cover it up. I mean, that would be fine. Again, if anyone does that to you, send them my way, and I'll explain to them not to do that, and that's rude for them to ask you, where's the calyx? But now, if you want to try the calyx, let's talk about that. So, first of all, let's do a quick couple-minute digression, because I've been getting a lot of questions about beads and different colors and this and that. So for me, I have kind of come to use basically 3 basic beads. I feel like we're gonna play that shell game, except the shells are right side up, so it doesn't really work. But anyhow, you get the idea. What's under this? Okay. Anyhow, we're gonna put this direction. There we go. There's a reason for that. Now, we're looking at these guys. These are the 3 that I use by far the most. And this one's, I use it. I use other ones too. But I basically have somehow gotten stuck because I really like things to look, in my mind, realistic, right? Those are air quotes underneath the actual camera, if you're wondering what the heck I'm doing. So, realistic. And for me, I really like the sort of softness of the matte transparents, and I like the deep sort of sea glass bottle greens. So they for me, I just think they're perfect framing for any kind of beaded flower, meaning like whether I use, color line shiny or matte transparent, which are basically the 2 major groups I use the most. I don't use opaque set often, but I do. Or I very rarely use shiny transparents, I realized. Probably use opaques more than that. But that being said, I do like opaque mattes in certain situations, for sure. But opaque shiny, not so much. Anyhow, I do like them. I'm starting to learn to appreciate them for sure. Anyway, let's get back to the story at hand here. So I use these for the most part. Now, you don't have to. I'm just people have been asking about the different colors, so I'm showing you the different colors. I tend to use for pretty much I'll be honest, 90% of my leaves. Leaves that are on stems are part of flower leaves. I can do different, you know, like, for example, this, let me see, I have one over here in this arrangement. You know, if I'm going to do one that's, like, meant to be part of an arrangement and it stands on its own leaves, like this is, you know, a shiny AB. This is also called an olivine. I can't remember what it is, but it's, you know, has an AB finish and it's shiny and it's opaque. And there it is. I use that and I like it, you know, but this one is, you know, a structure that kind of stands on its own. So when it's with a flower, I tend to want the flower to be the focal point. So that's why I think these work well. So this one I use the least. I'll talk about that in a second. These are the three I use the most. And I don't know if you can tell that these are actually two different colors. It's kind of hard, but you can definitely tell on a, in an actual arrangement when you're using them together, because it gives it some dimension, because they're not exactly the same, right? So it gives them sort of some variety for the eye to look at. This one, this really light one, this is a Matsuno bead, and it's F143B. That's this one, F143B. So Matsuno, I think, puts their Fs in front for frosted. Toho, I think, puts their Fs in the back. This is a Toho. So this is F143B, and it's their version. Some places even call it olivine. In fact, both of these are on the Fire Mountain website, and they're both called olivine there. I actually get this one, though, the Matsuno, from my local bead store, because she just gets me the half kilo bags. And so with these, and she calls it tourmaline for some reason, which is interesting. So that's how I think of it. So that one is a good one. It's a slightly lighter. This is such a good solid, like, bottle green. It's just like, it's your go-to. So this is Toho. This is 940F. And it's they call it matte olivine most places. Aura calls it matte moss transparent as opposed to matte olivine transparent. So that's something to be aware of, but it's still the same number. So 940F Toho. This one I use probably the most. It's just a go-to, gets the job done. It's a beautiful green. So next one I use is this check bead. I've only ever found this and it comes, I buy this by the quarter, by the half kilo too, but because it's a check bead, it's actually, when it's half kilo even, it's still in a bunch of hanks like this. But I go through so many of these three colors that the only way to make sense is to buy it in half kilo. So this I've only found in one place. It's at General Bead, and they call it, I don't know there's a number on here, but I've never seen that number in my life, 125M, I don't know. What they call it is evergreen. So matte, transparent evergreen. And it's a great darker green. It really is. And it's good because it's just not super, it's solid. It's like a forest green. And so these three are by far used the most. Then, once in a while, if I want to brighten things up, I will use this one. It's called a matte. Most places call it matte emerald. Some call it matte jade. This is also a Matsuno. And I think, let me try, it's F147A. I believe is its color. I'm pretty darn sure. So this one, again, you know, that's often called emerald, and it's just a little brighter. You know, you can't probably really see the difference on this. I'm trying to do one on a less busy background than I have before. So I tend to work on slightly damaged vintage textiles for some reason. So this is an old table runner with really pretty embroidery, but it has some issues, so it is now part of my work table. Okay, so those are the three I use. Now that are three basically, and then this extra one. So you don't have to, you can go whichever direction you want to. Like I just showed you, I used, you know, that for those other leaves, it's a shiny AB opaque, you know, and in fact, right now I'm doing kind of a large arrangement by custom order that was commissioned by someone who really liked a larger arrangement I had done of lilies before, but I had done the leaves in these colors, all three of these colors, and for her sensibilities or aesthetics, she really wanted it to be in lighter colors. So I'm doing it in, she particularly requested this bead from another arrangement. So this light khaki bead, I mean, it's called khaki, it's kind of a light olive green. And it's supposedly also transparent matte, but as you know, sometimes those transparent mattes are not even translucent, barely. But so now I'm doing a bunch of big leaves in that color, so those are fun. You know, here they're not really shaped yet, the front is. But so you can do lighter beads. I wouldn't have thought of it on my own, and now I'm kind of liking it. So pick whichever kind of colors you like. I'm doing kind of smaller ones too, the younger leaves. I do younger leaves in slightly brighter colors, so I have this color too that I'm doing for her. And so it's kind of a slightly brighter, lighter green. So anyway, my point here is you choose what you want to do. In fact, I got asked to do larger, like almost 6-inch long chrysanthemum leaves from, I think it was coral red, metallic copper, and rust, I think it was. And at first I was like, that's interesting. What a challenge. But I was super stunned with how much I liked them when I did them. So have fun with it. I would never have done that combo. And, I think that came out pretty awesome. And that would sound a little bit braggy, except for the fact that it wasn't actually my idea. I think I did it well enough, but I wouldn't have actually done it without someone asking for it and at that stage. And I sure am glad I did. So anyhow, these are my 3 greens. I actually don't normally keep them in glass. I have little bowls around. I love these little bowls, these little silicone bowls. I got them on Amazon, 20 of them for $12 or something like that, because you can make your own funnel with them. And then you can just put a little beads aside. And then if you need to put them back into your tube, you don't need to get a funnel out. You can just make your own funnel. It's kind of fun. So I normally actually have them sitting around in these if I need to have them waiting for a project. I sound like an ad for those, but they're really handy. They're actually really handy, and they're super light. And I really like the fact that you can, pour out of them. So anyhow, back to the matter at hand. So we're going to make this calyx, right? Oh, and so here's some examples, by the way, of those beads if you wanted to see them. Like, here's that, I was trying to make some grape leaves. So here's that emerald or jade, whichever one it is. Here's the olivine / moss. And then this is the Matsuno, I don't know, if tourmaline, olivine, whatever they want to call it. And then I was trying to make those grape leaves, and yeah, I don't know. I kind of gave up. I think my design is a little too picky. But then here's the evergreen in just a regular round bottom, pointed top, basic frame, just so you can see the difference in the colors in action. So you can imagine how if you use different leaf colors, you can really sort of give a lot of extra dimension to your arrangement or your bouquet by just those little choices, just to make it so that your eye isn't seeing something just always the same. It's just a thought, you do your thing, Again, even these that look super, probably on the camera, probably look so similar. You're probably going, what is she talking about? But honestly, in real life, they're just enough different that when someone's seeing an arrangement with them, they can go, oh, that like their eye knows that there's something else going on. It gives a little more of a natural dimension to it. So anyway, so that's my little digression, my little 10-minute digression. Jeez Louises, on bead color choices. Again, what we're going to do with these, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. We're going to do what basically every chrysanthemum pattern does with them. So I'm not claiming like in a million years that I came up with these out of the blue. This is basically what every chrysanthemum pattern in every book will have you do a leaf, like one of the 2 versions I'm showing you. So it's more about making it work, I guess. So the other thing about that too, when we do get to the leaves, we'll talk about when we get to leaf line. Let's talk about the calyx first. Okay, so for the calyx, we're going to do sort of a modified version of a basic frame situation. So I'm going to assume that there's some basic knowledge with the basic frame. If not, I know that, I don't know, but I'm pretty darn sure, because Fen and Lauren are so prepared, that there's got to be a really awesome video somewhere in the files, in the video section, about basic frames, because they're basic frames. And so, you got to learn them, right? Besides, that's the second thing I learned after continuous loops. Now, for me, I wasn't very good at watching videos. Again, irony, because I'm doing one now. And I'm also not very good at reading patterns. I get kind of like irritated. Not irritated, distracted. So I found one book really helped me, which was I'm looking over my bookshelf, because I have a ton of beading books, like all those like 60s and 70s classics. But I feel like a ton until Suzanne told me how many she had. And then I was like, I do not even have close to a ton, because that is impressive. So anyhow, I have one, I think it's called Beads in Bloom. It's the Arlene Baker book, I believe. The reason I like her book a lot is because I didn't have to read anything. She had such good diagrams in there. I didn't have to read. I barely had to read anything. So if you're like me where, you know, you like to see diagrams, I recommend that. So that's where I learned the techniques. There's not many patterns in that book. I think she has maybe like, I don't know, 6, 10 in the back of it. It's more about the techniques. And I found it very helpful because I really could understand her diagrams. Now, the reason I'm saying that again is because I was kind of clear when I said I was going to do this that I'm not like a pattern writer. I've never written a pattern. So my my notebooks, I'm going to try to explain this and show it to you guys. I don't know how I'm going to put it on in a PDF. I might try, but I'm not sure how good I'll be at that. Because again, my notebooks are weird drawings of things. Wait till you see how I draw the flowers. I mean the calyces. Calyx. I mean the leaves, sorry. I'm looking at two things at once. Okay, so let's hope I can do this in a way that doesn't make it super confusing. So we're going to give it a try. And again, it might be something you already know, and then maybe just seeing a different way of doing it, like the continuous loops. There's so many ways to do it, you know, and my way might be different, that video, than other videos you've seen. And so you can pick and choose between them, adapt them all, find your own blend. So basically, we're going to be looking at this kind of calyx, a very simple cone calyx. And that's because we want this kind of structure because we want it to work for us. We want it to help us buttress, you know, hold up, that old word, buttress up those petals on the bottom. We want it to kind of hold everything up and give us a little more stability. So we want it to be as simple as possible. I used to, when I first started, I would actually do these almost so flat, they're almost like a disc, just because I wasn't thinking about the structural part of them. I just thought it kind of looked kind of cool in a way. So they were very shallow cones, almost disc-like. But those don't really help you that much. So I started doing steeper cones. Now, let's figure out how we do this. So here, let's start doing some. And we will right now, hopefully that'll be a little bit faster. I'm going to put a note on this saying, if you don't want to hear me yapping about bead colors, then you can skip ahead to 17 minutes in or so. So I use these colors so much that I use paddle wire for my leaves, that I actually will have them preloaded. My husband helps me with these sometimes. I got him trained on the bead spinner. So I will keep them like preloaded about 10 feet at least, or 10 to 15 feet of. Now, if you do that, then you should leave at least 3 feet of bare wire in front, because otherwise it's a nightmare to like kind of load it forward and then, you know, have that many on there, to have to push them all forward. Anyway, so I keep them preloaded, and I don't really use paddle wire for anything except for my leaves. Now, why do I use paddle wire? I use them because I can use a 26 gauge green, and it's a good solid green. I like the ones that, well, to be honest, again, like floral tape and stem wire, even not all is created equal. But I like it being, because the thing with me is I like things to be sturdy. You've heard me say that. And the leaves tend to have to live on their own, just floating out in space. They don't have other petals around them to push against, or a calyx. So I want them to be stiff, basically. I want them to be sturdy with this. And so I use this wire, and it's thin. So I also don't have a bunch of bulk coming here, and it's easier to work with. And it's cheap, which is not why I did it, but as a nice, happy side effect. You know, I've resigned myself to the fact that our hobby, or whatever, not our hobby, I guess, our obsession, let's call it, is not an inexpensive one. I think we all know that. And wire is something that I've come to, you know, figure out that you're going to have to spend the money on it. But it's nice when you can get something that works well. It works well for me, and I have flowers that are 3 years old, and I have had no issues with aging on the paddle wire at all. So basically, I just got this at Joann, the 26 gauge, and, you know, there you go. Sometimes you get ones that are really stiff. I got one the other day that was so stiff I actually couldn't use it. It was so hard to bend. But that has only happened once, and I think it's when I got at Michael's, and normally it's fine there. So if that does happen, just don't think all wire's like that. Okay, so we're going to make this one. Okay, here we go. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this nice little cone. And So we're going to I'm going to do it. And I label them Emerald. Well, actually, this is my husband's writing. Emerald from General Bead. He's very good at it. And apparently when he loaded it on, which is not really necessary, it doesn't expire, but very thorough of him, we'll just say. But kind of funny. I don't know why there's a date on there. It's not like it's like yogurt or something. Gotta ask him why he did that. I don't know. So anyhow, I get why he put General Bead there, because definitely different batches of beads can be, different, slightly different colors. So you do want to know where they come from, even if they have the same name or even the same number, because different batches can be slightly different. So I probably asked him to do that part, but the date is very, very thorough.